down. Hats off to Seattle. We're live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Thanks for making us part of your day. All episodes now be available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. I got a very, very special guest in the house today. I haven't saw him in a long time. I haven't spoken to him in a long time until today, minutes before we came on here live. Eric Wasaki, former manager of the Cheesecake Factory, former GM at First Watch in Tennessee, who recently just got promoted to ADO ACOM of Dave and Buster's in stores of Alabama, Florida, Tennessee, Georgia, and West Virginia. Eric, my man, how have you been? Welcome to the program. It's been a while.
What's going on, Kemford? I am very excited to be here. I've been talking about it for 2 weeks with my wife, so I am good. Very happy to be here. Shed some stories.
Yeah, man, for sure. Hey, man, so what is it like in Tennessee, Knoxville, man, compared to Queens growing up, where you were born and raised? Big difference, right?
Oh yeah. Well, they definitely turn around. I can tell you this much: when they tell you Southern hospitality is a thing, it absolutely is. It is.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it changed already. Being here since 21, for being here 4 years, you can see with the pandemic, the massive influx from the Midwest and the West, you can definitely see culture's changed a little bit. I also think that's where I kind of live right now. It reminds me a lot of where Long Island used to be like, or even like the Nyack area,
Okay.
mainstream, up and coming. But if you branch out, a few miles north, a few miles east, west, it's all farmland. Um, Definitely, you have your mixture of your south. The basic way to put it is we're in the Bible Belt, and when they say you're in the Bible Belt, you're in the Bible Belt.
Yeah.
So, but the best thing about it that I love to compare it back to New York, it's culture. Like that's what I love
Okay.
about it. It's culture. So Southern hospitality is awesome. All the people that we've met around here, whether they're from here, it's funny. I think we made our new best friends that live here. They came from Pennsylvania, and then
Wow.
another good couple that we made friends with, they're from California. But everyone else that we've met down here that lives in Tennessee, they've been fantastic. It's nice. It's a slower pace of living, you know what I mean, which is different. But like I tell everybody, it's exactly like Connecticut, better weather,
Yeah.
better people. You still get the four seasons. You know, just not so much when it comes to major sports teams. Is the
Yeah.
downfall.
Well, you got the Tennessee Volunteers out there, right? The Vols.
Oh,
Go Vols, man.
listen, I never lived anywhere. Well, in Connecticut, Yukon for a little bit, right? But it
Yeah.
was just
Yeah.
mostly at that time when I lived in Yukon was the female basketball team,
The
right?
Huskies. They win every year, every other year.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But their hockey program, football program, men's basketball was up and down. But then it was neither an hour or 2 hours to Manhattan or it was 2 hours to Boston. So
Yeah.
here, when I moved here in 21, started seeing all these people dressed in orange. Their cars are orange,
Yeah.
pinstripes on their cars are orange, their
It's a
boats
big
are
deal.
orange. It's insane,
Yeah.
insane how people draw to it. So for me, living in a college town for the first time, it's unreal. I mean, the Titans don't even bleep on the
Yeah.
map compared to them. And now, like, their baseball team's even getting better. So,
Right.
like, that's all that you talk about here. And it's crazy, too, because a lot of people influx. Like, my neighbor next door, he's from Georgia, right?
Right.
So he's got his Georgia flag up. Then this
Gotta
guy's
get
got his
those
Tennessee Vols. Then
Tennessee
the guy
flag
up
up.
there
Yeah.
is from Ohio State. So it's
SEC.
crazy. So,
Yeah.
it's a big, 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 big college rivalry town, which is
Right.
something I'm not used to. You know what I mean? My whole
Yeah.
life, Saturday was work and Sunday was football. Not
Yeah.
here, not
It's
here.
different.
Saturday, it's all Saturday.
How much do you miss the New York pizza versus the
Oh,
food
dude,
in Tennessee, the
don't get
barbecue?
me started.
Can you
It's
find a good
it's
pizza place out there in
no,
Tennessee?
I have not.
Okay.
There's a couple places that are okay. I
Right.
tell you, it's even when and you could take this to Barstool Sports, but
Yeah.
even when I lived in Connecticut, the pizza wasn't as good as New York. And I
Okay.
went to a couple of the places that are supposed to be famous. The thin crust is
Yeah.
different than what you have but like a Sicilian pie or just a good pizza anywhere, no, nothing. There's nothing here. And there's been places around here. They say, "Oh, we're from New York. This place is the best. You got to try it." I have not been blown away. I tell you, who makes the best pizza right now for me in Tennessee is my father-in-law and his little pizza oven when we go by his house.
He's got a brick oven. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
he's. So that's the best. There's really nothing good here. And the kid and the kids didn't get to grow up with it, so like their favorites like Little Caesars, which is like an insult. So
Yeah. How's the barbecue out there in Tennessee? I hear good things about the barbecue.
Barbecue's good. Barbecue's
Okay.
definitely good. Definitely good.
Okay.
Definitely. The biggest thing down here that's kind of cool is all the infusion that you get with the barbecue and all that stuff
Okay.
too. So there's a lot of decent places around here, for barbecue. But the mom and pop joints are better than the mainstream joints for sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Nice.
But like again, down here it's become like where I live,
Yeah.
it's become culturally mainstream. So
Okay.
now you get a couple good places that pop up here and there, like downtown Knoxville's got a couple good places, and then you find a couple of local spots, and then it's really down good home cooking. But then you have to stay away from the chains because then it's nothing.
Yeah, not that good. So for the millions and millions of people that are listening right now, I want to know if Tennessee's home. Eric, is Tennessee home for you? Are you ever
Tennessee
gonna
is
move
home.
back to New York?
Nope. Nope. I tell you, I couldn't. I've gone back to New York now since we moved for weddings, get-togethers. My wife's best friend, she's the godmother. We've gone to see her godchild. Um, Queens was home. Queens is not the same. It's just not. It's become so massively. Everything's being knocked down and built into condominiums just to provide people for somewhat cheaper living that want to work in Manhattan. So it's just not the same. You go. I've gone down my old block. I've gone past my old church. I've gone past my old high school. Some things
Yeah.
look the same and some things have changed. But it's dirty. It's just dirty. And it's changed. And then where you guys live, where I met my wife in Blauvelt, we've gone up
Yeah.
there, and that's even
Different.
boomed even crazier than it used to be. Would I knock? And then Long Island, forget it. I hated Long Island when I lived in New York. I couldn't stand going
You
out there
couldn't
because of the
stand going out.
traffic and the people.
Oh,
But
forget about it.
my best friend from elementary school still lives out in Levittown, and he
Okay.
says, Eric, it's just not the same. Like everyone, he said, I forget. It's a Chinese or a Japanese builder. They're buying houses left and right, knocking them down and building $2-3 million homes, and then everyone that lives there now is a New York cab driver.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So
The
he
hustle,
says it's
man.
just
Yeah.
not. It's not the same. And then even if you embark out further to Southold and far out into Suffolk County, it's just massively condensed. Now, would I knock? I did go see, and I might be wrong, but my brother-in-law, my younger brother-in-law, he lives up in. Oh God, I'm gonna get this wrong, but he's upstate New York,
Okay.
upstate, and I've been to
Albany-ish.
past Albany,
Oh, okay.
like
Past
I
Albany.
want to
Okay.
say more into Western New York,
Okay.
and then we've gone to Buffalo a lot.
Yeah.
Now I wouldn't mind living up there. It's
Okay.
still really nice up there. There's a lot of land, a lot of property. It's quiet. It's humble. I don't think I would want to go back just because I don't think I would want to go back into the mainstream of it all.
Okay. Fair
But
enough.
yes, right now this is home. I'm not moving to Florida, even though my mother and father begged me to move to Florida. You can't pay me to move to Florida. It's too goddamn hot. I ain't going down there. No way. But it's really
What,
nice here.
what were you like as a kid growing up in Queens? Bad, a lot of trouble, graffiti on the wall. What were you like
I
growing up
was
as a kid?
I was always the good boy, but I
Okay.
did dabble and get myself in trouble a lot. I
Okay.
was always the guy that followed the crowd, but I got always involved in the wrong crowd. But I was never the guy that was the ringleader or the one that always got in trouble. So
Right.
I did it all. I hung out with graffiti crews. I hung out with, all the kids that thought they were gangsters when we were all younger,
Right.
walking around at night, fighting each other in the park, everyone putting their tags up on subway trains. But I never was the guy that snuck out of my house at midnight to go tag, an E train. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
I always, for me, as being young, I was always, my parents always raised me to be a good kid. So I was always a good kid.
Right.
But I got in trouble. I did stupid things, you
Yeah.
know? So, but like,
Okay.
I was never like, I would always say, I kind of always like refer to like, I was kind of like Spider in Goodfellas. You know what I mean? Like I always
Yeah.
tagged around, but I never
Yeah.
was the bad kid.
So crazy. Did you have any brothers or sisters growing up or no?
I still have my younger brother actually lives in Florida right now. He's
Okay.
hanging out. He's hanging out down there with my parents. He
Yeah.
loved Florida, wanted to be in Florida his whole life. Now he can't wait to get out of it.
I had Daniel Stork on here a couple of weeks ago, and she's like, "Yeah, I knew Eric before Cheesecake." I'm like, "What? How did you guys even know each other before this whole thing evolved, the Cheesecake Factory?"
I'm trying to remember, and it's at the tip
Okay.
of my head, and I can't. It might come
Okay.
back to me, but I know it has
Okay.
to be. It's like because I know her, and as soon as I saw you do this, and I was like, I know, and
Yeah.
I know all about it, but I can't. You know, I can't. This I used to have the best memory, and now things
Yeah.
just start to fade out as
Fade
they
out as
go.
we get
But
older.
it's
We're
gonna.
getting older, man. Yeah.
It's gonna come back to me. Watch after the
Yeah.
show, and I'm gonna have to
Okay.
text you, or she's gonna get on the next show, and she's gonna yell at you
She's
to
gonna
yell
yell
at
at
me
me
because I
for not.
remember.
Yeah, exactly. How were your parents growing up? Were they strict parents, or they were cool, relaxed, calm, cool, and collected?
So my mom was the hard ass. She's
Okay.
the Italian one, so I'm half
Okay.
Italian, half Polish. My mom was the hard ass. She ruled the house with the iron fist, and my
Okay.
father was the sweetheart. He was the pushover.
Wow.
Um, like any other typical childhood, if I was bad, I got the belt. If I was bad, I
Okay.
got smacked in the back of the head with a spoon. I got punished. Me and my wife had this argument all the time.
Yeah.
Like I only have so much patience with my kids. Until I start yelling and screaming because that's
Right.
just the way I was raised. Um, they were good to me. They were fair. They never really treated me bad. They were always honest and took care of me, guided me in the right direction. They would guide me enough to never let me take advantage. You know what I mean? So it wasn't I never lived in the world where I was privileged. I earned it. And
Yeah.
if I did something wrong, I paid the price for it.
Right.
I was lucky, I my parents, God bless them, they're still married today. In this world, the divorce rate is through the roof, and
Sure.
they probably still want to kill each other every day because they're at
Yeah.
that point in their lives. But they were never to the point where it was like I never was. When you were younger, you were afraid you did something wrong. You didn't want to tell mom and dad. But
Right.
the way my childhood grew up is it came to a point where I did my rebellious shit. I snuck out, I did things, I came home late, drinking, smoking pot, all the things that my parents never wanted me to do. But I
Yeah.
never put myself in a position where I abused it to the fact where my parents had to come down on me to a point where I had an ultimatum. But I had my ultimatums when it came to school. School was very important. I had to do good in school. But then at the same time too, but then it came to a point where when I broke the rules and I'll never forget the story when I moved out the first time and I actually moved to West Nyack to Pomona City, right?
Yeah.
Am I
Pomona
saying it right?
City. Yeah. Exit
My
13. Yeah.
my
Yeah.
motherfucking hated me for it. She's,
Yeah.
the Italian son left and she's like, yeah,
Yeah.
fuck you. But then, I messed up and, girl broke my heart and my mom
Yeah.
had the, door wide open for me to come back home. And through that, I grew up to just become they're like best friends, so
Yeah.
but no, I wouldn't change it for the world what my parents put me through, so
That's awesome, dude. Who do you take after most, your mom or dad? You think?
my temper from my mom, and
Okay.
then if for
Okay.
sure, definitely my temper. When it comes to
Yeah.
certain things, there are
Yeah.
certain things that just don't fly with me. Like for me, I'm very patient, always have been very patient. Takes a lot for me to snap. I think I'll snap a lot more like my mother when I'm comfortable, right?
Okay.
If I'm at home, my four walls. The only other time that I really lose my shit unprofessionally or in public is if it's anything that has to do with crossing the line with my family.
Okay.
So, anyone ever says something to my wife or the kids or stuff like that, I have no problem
No
jumping in
patience for
front
it.
of a car. No, I just don't because I would never do that to anyone else's wife or kids. So,
Yeah. Sure.
but as far as taking after anyone, I would have to say I take after my father. I probably mimic my father to a T when it comes to being and it has its blessings, but it also has its downfalls. I could be a bit of a pushover if you don't remember me at Cheesecake
Sometimes.
Factory.
Of
You
course.
know,
We got into that for
I was
sure.
always a sweetheart. So yes, I would
Yeah.
say definitely my father for sure.
Any fights growing up? You ever lost a fight? Any fights, or you're pretty good, clean record?
Every fight that I ever had to protect myself in, I
Yeah.
have won. I'm proud to
Okay.
say at 47 years old, I have won. Can I say I can count on more than two hands in
Yeah.
fights? No.
No.
I always again too like never was the instigator. You know what I mean? I was always kind of like for myself. I always saw myself as kind of like that guy that was a protector. So like if I
Okay.
always with my friends, I remember there was a fight where my friend was about to get blindsided with a punch and I took the kid out before that kid could get to my friend, because
Yeah.
I never was the type of to me it wasn't worth it. I
Okay.
never saw what's why push
Yeah.
somebody to a point where to instigate them to that. I never felt like you could win that way. So it
Right.
never really was. But I always protected myself very well. So
That's good. Yeah. Clean record. There we go. Perfect. Let's talk about this first watch thing, right? The concept, right? How did you get started? How many locations are there nationwide? How did that come about?
So what ended up happening was when I was with Dave and Buster's and the
Yeah.
pandemic came out, I didn't get furloughed. I was still with the company, was doing fine. Um, right before about 2 years before the pandemic, my mother and father retired finally from Queens to Florida. And in the pandemic, my in-laws owned a bakery in Suffern and they owned the building as well. And then the bakery was having its ups and downs, and then it got worse during the pandemic. So when real estate became a big deal, and everyone was just chopping up land and putting their houses up for sale and getting 300% more than they were supposed to, and all that stuff. My father-in-law's father, they lived in Buffalo. They sold a house and they took an Airstream and they traveled across the United States and they fell in love with Crossville, Tennessee. So during the pandemic, my in-laws took their camper and they went traveling. They went to Destin, Florida, which is one of their favorite spots, and stopped in Clarksville, and they fell in love with Tennessee. So they ended up putting their house up for sale because they have three kids. You know, my wife and their older son and their younger son. Everyone flew to Coop. So they decided to put the house up for sale and move to Tennessee. So living in Connecticut, it was about an hour and 40 minutes away, hour and a half away from Blauvelt, where we lived, no traffic, and my parents were gone. We didn't have a support system. So once the pandemic started to come out and we were building back up the business, I was working a lot, which was nothing out of the norm, but it was hard on the wife. The wife had, 8 in the morning to 5 o'clock at night, pick up the kids, come home, take care of the kids together. But then on the weekend, it didn't stop. So it just got too much. And, we didn't also too like that was where it really hit me because I remember seeing like the tears in my wife's eye, like how hard it was for her and as a husband and the way I was raised, it was not, I had to do
Feel it.
something.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too was like, and to my wife's, her word, we wanted them to grow up near family, and
Right.
it was a tough decision. It was tough, between, do we move to Florida, do we move to Tennessee? We entertained North Carolina, so we didn't want one parent to feel that we picked the other parent over the other parent because it was never like that. Everyone was equally loved. So my wife started just ticking around on the internet and looking for jobs and everything that she found. I was like, nope, nope, nope. I think she found me GM of like one of Ripley's matte wax museums, and
You're like, nope, can't do it.
nope, I'm not going to work in a building with a bunch of figures that don't move.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know if you might know this name, but a kid that worked for me at the time in Wayne when I was with Cheesecake Factory was a guy named Alfie Ramirez. He
Okay.
started out with me. He was a baker, worked his way up to management, good kid. Kind of fell off the face of the earth for a little bit. And then all of a sudden, every night when I go to bed, I put The Office on to fall asleep. And I'm sitting there watching The Office and
Yeah.
was looking, just scrolling. And he came up on Facebook and he got 100% on his Stereotex score. So I was like, oh, man, good for you. And then he answered me and I was like, where are you working? And he told me First Watch. And I was like, what's that? And I never heard of it because
Never
they're
heard
not
of it.
up.
Yeah.
They're really not up. They're slowly getting into Jersey, but I don't think they're in New York.
Right.
From when I left. But um, he's like, they don't pay as much as Cheesecake, they don't pay as much as Dave and Buster's, but you don't work nights. And I'm like, not even on the weekends. And he said, yeah. So I applied for shits and giggles. They had a location. They had several locations in the Tennessee area where we live, and I applied and I had my interview and everything went well. And I was honest too. Like, I told him like, look, I've been on track to grow with this company. I don't want to be stagnant. I don't want to be a GM forever. I want to grow. I want to teach. I want to develop. So I ended up getting a position. It was probably the hardest thing for me to do. One of the hardest things for me to do was to leave Dave and Buster's. And I'll never forget those exit interviews because they were tough. And then we moved down here in 21, in July of 21.
Right.
And then I ended up joining a franchise for First Watch, but they had, I can't quote me on the number, but I know they had easily over, I want to say 200, 300 locations
Wow.
between the West Coast and East and
Coast.
Southeast. So they were originally from California, and then they moved to Florida, and then they've built themselves out of Florida. I mean, most of the units are only 12 to 16,000 square feet, you
Okay.
know,
Tiny.
and it's all food. It's all food.
Right.
So it's 99% of their revenue is food. The amount of food sales that they would do in a given week is exactly what Dave and Buster's would do in a week, but
Okay.
nowhere near what Cheesecake Factory is. I remember, if I'm right, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think cheesecake revenue, food was like 65%. And then like,
back then.
yeah,
Yeah,
and then dessert was the next and liquor was the least, you know?
back then. Yeah.
So, but
Now
it's
takeout's huge now with cheesecake. Huge, 27%.
takeout's huge for
Yeah,
everybody now
everybody. Yeah,
because there's no time.
yeah,
There's no time. You can't get out of work at 5 and be home by 5:30, make dinner
yeah,
and eat at 6 and sit down and
yeah,
do your thing. You
yeah,
got after school programs and kids got things. And then by the time you get home, or like for my wife, she works from home, but she's supposed to wrap up her day every day between 4:15 and 4:45. She ends up going to 5:30, 6 o'clock.
yeah,
You're tired, you're exhausted. You don't want to cook,
yeah.
and then that's the other thing too. Groceries are out their ass. And then if you don't cook all the food, and then, when you got kids, like they'll eat 6 cucumbers
Starving.
on Monday, and then they don't want to look at a cucumber for 6 weeks, and then all of a
Couple
sudden you're
days. Yeah,
throwing away food. So,
yeah,
but yeah, it's the convenience of it all. It's
yeah,
convenience.
for sure. What do you compare a First Watch to? Right, we were talking about off air. The biggest competition is what you think?
I tell everybody when I work for First Watch, it's the Cheesecake Factory of brunch. It's
Okay.
exactly what it is. It's the step up. It's the top notch. It's the bougie.
Yeah,
It's like when we were at Cheesecake Factory, that's where all the kids wanted to go and eat, right? That's where
yeah,
all the
for
girls
sure.
came after school, all the dates. It's the exact same thing at
Yeah,
there. It's the Starbucks of coffee. Like it's Starbucks and then Dunkin' Donuts. So it's
yeah,
Cheesecake Factory. You got a couple other ones that try to be like that: Maggie McFly's,
yeah,
BJ's, and Yard House. And then you got the rest, Fridays and Chili's and Applebee's and all that shit, right?
yeah.
So then
Mhm.
when you get to the brunch of it all, the mom and pop joints will always give the First Watch a place to run for their money because they've been there forever. They have their loyalty. But then you
Right.
got Waffle House and IHOP, and now there's another one that's up there competing with them very well, Tupelo Honey,
Okay.
the Flying Biscuit. So it's all scratch kitchen. It's an
Yeah,
85% scratch kitchen, and you crank. You open up at 7. You crank between 9 o'clock and 1 o'clock, and
yeah.
you're wrapped up. And if you do things the right way, you're out the door by 4 or 5 o'clock every day.
4 o'clock. That's crazy. Are they ever gonna go to like maybe dinner, or you don't think that's gonna happen?
No, I don't think so. I think that's
Okay.
part of the whole concept of wanting to work for them. You know, if give and take our careers, right? We
Yeah,
open to close, swing close, swing open
yeah,
close, you name it, the clopin, whatever.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
just being able to have that novelty of being home every day for dinner,
yeah,
right? Is huge.
yeah. Of
It
course,
did take
of course.
time, definitely took time. It took me about, I'd say, 3 to 6 months to get used to the time, because you're in there at 5 o'clock in the morning, right?
Yeah,
And
getting
that's
ready. Yeah,
something Cheesecake Factory, what, 7:30, go in 8,
yeah. 7:30, 8 o'clock. Yeah,
same thing
yeah,
with Dave and Buster's,
yeah.
Dave and Buster's later hours than Cheesecake Factory, but we all know what it was like on the close. If you were a
Sure.
dedicated manager, you weren't running out the door because you get your ass
No,
chewed out the next day.
of
So,
course.
so what, 1:30 to 3 o'clock in the morning, you don't have that no more.
Don't
That
have
was
that
one thing.
anymore.
But once you get used to it,
Yeah,
it's easy money.
yeah, for sure. How was servers there? Servers compared to Cheesecake, they make good money
Servers,
there. Servers at the First
absolutely.
Watch. Yeah.
Those servers made great money. They really did.
Okay.
They fought the same fight that every server fights. Send them home, send them home. I can do it. I can do it. And you got to
Yeah,
sit there
of
and say,
course.
you don't give good service if you have too many tables. Even though you have the one or two servers that can stretch it one or two
That can
further,
hold like
that's
eight,
fine.
9 tables by themselves. Yeah, same thing.
But something slips. But I mean, depending on the location down here where we worked in Tennessee,
Yeah.
there were servers walking out on Sundays with anywhere between $200 to $300.
Okay. Very
I
good.
mean, that's not bad for a come in at 9 o'clock and go
Brunch.
home at
Yeah.
4.
4 o'clock.
You
Not too
know,
bad at all.
I
Yeah.
mean, to make that money, I know going back to my time at Cheesecake Factory, that's when it was just the untouchable. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? The
Yeah.
cannibalism wasn't there. You know what I mean? Like Nyack still was competitive to White Plains to a degree. White Plains
Right.
was a different demographic
Okay.
than
Right. The
right,
Nyack.
but
Yeah.
they still were busy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Sure.
Now it's like, forget it. You're 20 minutes from Wayne, 20 minutes from Hackensack, 20 minutes from here. So you
Trumbull,
diverse.
Danbury, Queens, kind of watered it down a little bit.
It's
Yeah.
watered down.
Yes,
So
watered down.
now you go less servers. You don't make as much influx. I mean, back in the day, what Saturday nights when you were a server and I was a manager, what was it?
Yeah.
Every Friday and Saturday night was anywhere between an hour to an hour and a half wait on
Not
average,
wait. Yeah, because that was the only
right?
ones locations around there.
When was the last time a Cheesecake Factory will do that now?
Yeah.
You know?
No, not
So
happening.
it doesn't happen anywhere anymore
Yeah.
because everyone sells the same shit.
Yeah.
But, you know, The servers, same intent serving, got to know the menu, got to know how to write things down, got to know how to do the modifiers.
Right.
But I mean, I think the server standard there was pretty similar, pretty
Okay.
similar. So yeah, I would say it was definitely up there. Not as intense to the point of
Right.
how much. Like I know when I left Cheesecake Factory, you had the favorite drink, favorite appetizer. You had to talk about dessert of the day, the fish of the day, the whole
Over
nine
there.
yards.
Yep.
They still had their things. They had to
Okay.
push, whatever the new menu was. Talk about the new menu, gift card sales, all that
Okay.
stuff. Upsell for the alcoholic drinks that they had and the special drinks. But same thing. Very
Okay.
similar.
The menu, very extensive. Menu changes every 6 months to a year.
Every
How
six
was that?
months. Every
Okay.
6 months.
Okay.
Yeah, the seasonal change every 6 months.
Prices went up.
Appetizer. When I left, it went up. I want to say I know the last year I went up, they went up 3-4 times.
Okay. Gotcha.
And it's just to offset. I mean, I know at one point, so you think about it too, with breakfast food, eggs at one point were through the roof, right? So, I mean, if you call and you get put on hold when they turn around and they tell you they go through 500 cases of eggs a week, they ain't bullshitting you. Like it's crazy, like the amount of avocados just alone is not cheap. It
Yeah,
was
for sure.
insane. And then being a scratch kitchen, they had a very good cost flux. So but there was a lot of waste too. So
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, price. I mean, menu price. I mean, look, I was blown away. I want to say about 8 months ago, I went to the Cheesecake Factory here in Knoxville, and
Okay.
I took my wife and kids.
Slice of cheesecake from when you started to now.
When I got the check, Kenford, when I got
Yeah.
the check,
Right.
my heart hit the floor.
Wow.
Like I wasn't
Yeah.
really paying attention to the prices, just going with the flow.
Yeah.
Wife and I had a drink or two. We got an appetizer table, the kids menu, kids stuff, and then when I got the check and the service was so bad from when I used to be there, right? And I don't think it was her fault. I think what it's like when you go out to eat and you're in the industry,
Yeah.
you try to figure out
Of
what's
course.
wrong.
What's
So I
yeah.
was like, I don't know if she had tables on two different sides of the building or the kitchen was behind or whatever. But when I got the check and the check was like $260,
Wow.
I looked at my wife and I said, "Holy shit!" Like I've gone out to Manhattan, right? Just me and my wife, and that'd be an average check, right? You get a bottle of
Right.
wine, appetizer, whatever. But I was just blown away because it just wasn't the same,
Right.
for the level of decor to service standard that it was like. And
You were
again, you
used to.
can't
Yeah.
can't be mad about it because you're running with less servers, you're running with less bussers, you're running with less cooks. So the standard's hard to meet. But the thing that always gets me, and I say this to everybody all the time, right? It's I don't remember if you remember the movie Waiting when he's
Yes.
outside and he's
Yes.
outside, then
Yes.
it's like it's just that little bit more that you give. Like it doesn't exist anymore.
No, it
It
doesn't
doesn't.
exist
Like no
anymore.
one
Yeah.
takes pride in it anymore. Like and it kills me because it's like you forget you're in the hospitality industry. And that was the one thing I loved about being a server, and I've always loved
Yeah.
about being a manager was like for me, it was the challenge of changing that asshole at the end of the day. It didn't have to
Right.
necessarily be a 20% tip, but just for that person to know that when he was
Yeah.
writing that tip, oh man, this motherfucker was really
He's
good. Like
good. He's good. Yeah.
I
I
can't
can't
do
even
it.
sniff him. I
And I
can't do it. Yeah.
and I'll swear to this day, I
Yeah.
swear on my fucking kids, when I
Yeah.
served in 1997 up until I became a manager at Cheesecake Factory, I
Yeah.
never got stiffed on one check. I never picked
Really?
up a check presenter and there wasn't a tip in there. I swear
Wow.
on my fucking kids. They were
Wow.
there a couple really shitty tips, $1 or
Yeah. Of
$2,
course. Yeah.
or grandma left me loose change because that's all she
Yeah.
had. But I
Right.
never, ever, ever picked up a check, Cheesecake Factory black check presenter with the gold logo on it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
never got a tip because it was
Wow.
just I fell in love with being a server. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's the thing too. It's like I just don't think it's a dying breed, the hospitality industry. And then now in this day and age, the worst part about it for me is that everywhere across the board is everyone that works wants you to feel bad for them,
Right. Yeah.
right? And
Exactly.
there's
It's
no
weird.
more, well, okay, it's not that I don't care, not that I'm not a nice person, right?
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
you have a job to do. Like it's literally happened to me when I was flying the other day. I
Yeah.
changed my flight because they say the flight got pushed back 4 times. I had to be somewhere. And
Yeah.
then I'm checking my flight status and my baggage is still on the wrong flight. So I go up to the whole thing, and the lady's just like, "It's just been a rough day. You have to understand they're behind." And I'm like, I do. I was like, but
Yeah.
I've been here all day. I was like, will my bags, I was like, thank you. Will my bags still make it to that
Arrive.
flight?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You should be fine. And then, obviously my baggage didn't come with me. I had to go back to the airport that night. But when I got to the other airport, they turn around
Yeah.
and they say to you, well, they lied to you. They just didn't want to be bothered because they were having a rough day. And again, I get it, but like that's the people have just lost that
That
little
decorum, that
much, that little bit
hospitality.
more.
Yeah.
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 First watch. Is there like a menu rollout we did back in the day compared to that? And this, I went on the website and I saw the BEC sandwich made on sourdough. That BEC sandwich is incredible, backed by popular demand. Oh, tell us about that menu rollout and the BBC sandwich.
So if I remember the sandwich correctly,
Yeah.
it was just a very popular sandwich. So rewind it to the menu rollouts, completely
Yeah.
different than Cheesecake Factory.
Okay.
Completely different. So and it
Okay.
was so basically all your products drop shipped about 2-3 weeks before the rollout, right?
Okay.
You have to have everything prepped the weekend before you go live,
Okay.
right? And then
Yeah.
they got a little bit better at it. They would do one, but then they would do 2 to 3 classes. So basically you would hit everybody on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday before you went live. And then you used to go live on Monday, but then they pushed it back to Tuesday just so you had a little bit ease into it. But the good thing about it is the managers all made the food and they put it up in
Okay.
the window, right? And then they would have all the servers at the end of the shift come up to the window. Everyone got to taste it, and you
Yeah.
got to tell everyone about it. You went about all the ingredients, how it's made, the whole 9 yards, and then your key indicators, what to sell, what the tour guide through this has nuts in it, so you make sure you have to tell about the allergy and stuff like that. And believe it or not, after the server seeing it once, first 2-3 days you had a lot of
Yeah.
stupid mistakes,
It
but
takes time, like everything else,
and
right?
that's
Yeah.
it. And then that was it. There wasn't that everyone had to come in on Saturday morning at 7:30. No big recognition party. No, everyone cooks the food, make 20 items and pass them around. No, 2 days, boom, go, save your
That's it.
labor, and that's
Yeah.
it. And it went off without a hitch. No test, no testing. No one had to
Yeah.
go online and take tests. So it was very mainstream. The one thing about them though is if by demand, if things would hit the corporate office that people wanted it came back and it was on there. When I first started with the company, the breakfast tacos was something that they did seasonally. And
Okay.
then literally the demand for those tacos was so much it became a staple on the menu. So certain sandwiches and certain dishes and certain, I mean, it's a fight because there are certain
Yeah.
things that come out like that people just like they
Uh,
definitely have something down right. You
the
know what I mean?
science there. Yeah.
They do, and I think they've perfected it to a degree. But
Yeah.
again, it's intense. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many pancakes I would flip on a Sunday. You know what I mean? Like it was crazy.
I'm looking at the menu. I see blueberry lemon cornbread, pineapple express, strawberry tres leche, French toast, chimichurri steak and eggs hashed, and Nutella hack. I mean, just amazing. I've got to go check it out. There's one in Montville by my house, right? So I got to go and just check this thing out, right?
I would listen. I tell everybody the food is good. The food's
Yeah.
good. It's a little bit pricey, but again, like I said, you're not paying for IHOP, right?
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
not there for the deal. You're there for the food and the service, right?
Right.
The hashes are to die for. I could tell you how many. Every time a menu rollout came out, the hashes were like basically always my favorites.
Yeah.
And it's different.
Awesome.
It's not
Yeah.
like a hash like you get at the diner.
Right.
It's got potatoes, it's got its onions and all that. And
Yeah.
potatoes are made fresh every morning. The potatoes are constantly going off and on that grill all day
All the
long,
time.
all day
How
long.
how are the managers there? You like them? Get along with them?
So when I came down here to Tennessee, you could definitely see that there's some people that had to get up and go,
Okay.
and then you had people that don't. So you're in the South,
Yeah.
so things move a
Yeah.
little bit slower, right?
Right.
Um, for me, when I first came aboard, um, I remember the first store I was in, they weren't Tennessee people. They were from Michigan and somewhere else. So you can definitely pick up on the culture
Yeah.
difference, right?
Sure.
But
Sure.
I wouldn't say it's any different than anywhere else. It's just
Okay.
like I say, if there is anything in this world that you can tell
Yeah.
anybody that does not work in this industry, if you want to know what this industry is like and you have them sit down and watch the movie Waiting, it still exists to this day.
It still exists to today. It's
Right?
never gonna change. It's
There's
never
the
gonna
one
change.
manager that doesn't shut the fuck up and stop
Yeah.
cursing and fucking hates everyone.
Yeah.
There's the one manager who whines all day and blames everybody for everything. Then there's the one guy that everybody wants to go to, and
Yeah.
it has not changed at all. I mean, it's like I remember when I got promoted and I was a regional for them, and the gentleman that I worked for worked with me who had the busiest store in Knoxville at the time.
Yeah.
He's from DC originally, hardworking guy, but he's stubborn. You know,
Yeah.
he was one of those managers that would kill himself because he didn't want to take the time to let somebody else make a mistake because then he would have to teach them how to correct it. So that was, there was a battle there for me, right? So you got to teach them, you got to give people a chance. But at the same time too, he pushed everyone away. He was unapproachable. He was always cranky. He was always pissed off. And then every once in a while, he would be in a good mood, and then he would just confuse the shit out of the staff, confuse the
Gets
culture.
tiring. Yeah. It gets tiring.
Exactly, because you don't know, can I talk to you? Can I not talk to you? Can I this?
Exactly. Depends
You
again
know,
on- yeah.
and then and then there were and then there were managers that were just completely go to. To me, I've always seen, for me in this industry, to pluck someone from another concept, right?
Yeah.
I'd say 1 out of every 6 is a gem, right?
Okay.
They get
Yeah.
it, they adapt, they're not
Right.
stuck in their ways.
Right.
But to me, and I don't know if it just resonates from me in my career, but the internal is so much easier to develop
To
and
manage and
breed
develop. Yeah.
and get them to understand. And then once they understand, then they can flourish into those other people. But it's just always been like it's a culture shock. Like,
Yeah.
okay, like Cheesecake Factory, we had you had to do all the stuff that we had to do, go to corporate, the testing, the levels. You had to know as a GM, you had to know every single. I mean, I still think I know parts of the barbecue ranch and Chinese chicken salad recipe.
Salad.
You know what I
To
mean?
this day.
But
Yeah.
you know, but like, it's the same thing too. Like at first watch, that's all it is. You're in at 5 o'clock in the morning. You're turning everything on. You're cooking 25 to 45 trays of bacon, and then sometimes you didn't even make it. At 1 o'clock,
Right.
you're throwing in more bacon because between the $1 million
So busy.
bacon and the regular bacon, it just flies off the shelf. Or
Yeah.
then they overcook it, and then it brittles and it breaks, and you can only use it for the hash. So you still run out of bacon. If you get someone from Cheesecake, and the one thing I learned about Cheesecake is always they had the best training systems. That's the one thing I'll never take away from Cheesecake Factory. They had it down to a T. But the one thing that people don't understand is when you come from a Chili's, an Applebee's, these places where everything is put in an oven and cook or
Inside.
just reheat
Yeah.
up. There's no intensity, right?
Right.
There's no figuring it out. You can't. There is no thawing process. There is no marinating. There is no, I have to take a whole case of avocados and I have to chuck the pit and I have to, like wear my cut gloves so I don't put the blade through my. They're not used to that. And then
Right.
when you take that level of work and put it into a different level, yeah, they're going to pay you more money, right? But then you're also bringing on more responsibility
More
in that
responsibility.
different world,
A
right?
lot of them don't
So
make it. Yeah.
no, and that's the thing. When people are like, oh, I worked in the kitchen, and like, I mean, I remember even asking people, like, you interview people nowadays, and like, oh, I was a line cook for 24 years. I'm like, oh yeah, so tell me about the temperature danger zone, and then they would look at you and be like, huh? And I'm
What is
like,
that?
so you don't know
Yeah.
what that is, but you've been a line cook for 20 something years, and you don't know that if something's between 41, and you
Yeah.
can kill someone or get
Nope.
sick.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but then is it possible? Maybe because
Yeah.
shit's pre-cooked and there is no, or they're just never taught and they've just worked in shitty establishments. But
Right.
the managers are the same. The breed of management that's out there is the same. You have
Okay.
the young buck that buys into it like us
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
wants to keep rolling with it because they become passionate. Some
Yeah.
last, some quit. And then you have the old war vet that comes in, the John Munsons,
Yeah.
that have been around the block forever. They come in and they get it. And then some of
Yeah.
them like, F this is bullshit
I'm
and I'm
out.
out,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? And then, you have the people that they do it and then they just don't want change and they stay there and they're miserable forever. I mean, I've even had managers like that. Like I have one manager that every day, this place sucks, everything about this place sucks, this is this and this. But why are you still here for? But
Yeah.
I don't know, but never left. I swear,
Never left.
I could give $1 a day. It's my last fucking day. I'm not coming back on Monday. 2 months later, we're saying the same thing. But
Same
no,
thing.
nothing has changed. It's the industry.
Yeah, for sure. Leaving First Watch, how tough was that? You miss it? What made you leave?
For me, it was disappointing because it started out really fresh, right? And then it started off on a great foot. And at the end, it just I for me, I just how can I put this? Personal indifferences for sure for the first time for me.
Okay.
Um, and then I wasn't happy. You know, my wife said it to me when I came back to Dave and Buster's. She said it. I think she said it to me about maybe 6 months when I was back into. She goes, "I've never seen you in the entire time I've known you. Bad days and good days at Dave and Buster's, whatever. Hard days, bad phone calls, bad meetings, whatever. Never seen you so shut down and so miserable." Because the thing for me is I poured everything I had into it, and I felt like if I was giving guidance to do something the one day and I did it that way, 2 weeks later it was wrong. And then I got to the point where I was just constantly doing this circle, and I'm just like, well, no matter what, and I've been down that road. I've been down that road where I feel like no matter what I do is not good enough. But I've always found a way to see the light at the end of the tunnel and get myself through it. And I've gone
Right.
through it a lot. I
Yeah.
mean, did it when I was a server and managers told me I would never be a GM for Cheesecake Factory. And fuck you, I proved you wrong, right? I found the way through it. I found the right way to get through it. I've done it, and then it just it got to the point where it was like no, there was not any more juice that you can squeeze out of the grape at that
Yeah.
point. Like it was like, and again, like I don't know, it's just like the signals were always mixed, and I don't, and again, like, and I only say this, just when I didn't realize I was getting into a franchise part of it all, right?
Okay.
So that would made it a little bit harder, right? And
Yeah,
I get
for
it.
sure.
Everyone's got a business to protect. You have revenue to protect. You have your investors, and I understand that. But it got to the point where it was just like you felt like it just wasn't good enough, and no matter what you did, it was
Whatever you
never
did
going to
was
be
never
good
good enough.
enough.
Yeah.
And then it got me to the point morally where I've never in my career, right? And I've been doing this since I'm 14. I started in this industry, bussing tables and washing dishes. I was defeated. I was
Yeah.
defeated. It had nothing to do with the hours, nothing to do with the stress of the job. It
Yeah.
was just I couldn't the culture. It was just I've never worked, never felt so. I say this every time I open a store when I do things. I say, right, that once the plague starts, right, once it sets
Spreads.
in, if you don't nip it
Nip it in the
and it
bud. It's over.
spreads, it's done.
It's
And
game
this was
over.
the first time that I was like in The Walking Dead. I just couldn't do
Yeah.
it. I couldn't
Couldn't
do
agree
it.
more.
I didn't have motivation. I didn't have
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Nothing. Like there
Time to
was
go.
no motivation, and it was just like. And again, it's just
Time to
now
go.
was it like that on the corporate side? Maybe not. I
Right.
got along with the people I work with on the corporate side, but
Right.
and everything happens for a reason, right? So
Sure.
this fell in my lap to come back, and I will. Dave and Buster's was always home for me. They took me in when Cheesecake did me wrong, and
Right.
so and then I'm back, and I can't complain, So
Yeah.
after not even a year later, I'm right back where I wanted to go when I left in 21. So
Yeah.
can't complain. I'm excited. So.
That's awesome, man. Ever going to retire from this food industry? Was there ever something else you wanted to do, like a plan B, or food was it for you? How did you get into the food thing?
Oh boy. So funny story. I always wanted to be a marine biologist. That was what I wanted to be
Really?
when I was a kid. And it'll go
Wow.
back to your first question when we were talking about my parents. So
Yeah.
my parents bought a house in Florida.
Yeah.
Florida Atlantic University was 3 miles down the road from where we lived in Boca. And
Yeah.
I wanted to go there to school. And then my mom told me when I graduated high school, if you're gonna think you're gonna go live in my house in Florida for free, you got another thing fucking coming. I ain't letting you go stay down there. So it wasn't happening. She was just like, "You ain't going nowhere," and I
Yeah.
was a busboy. I mean, like I just made
Wow.
enough money to cover my car note and my cell phone and my credit card. Right? I was living at
Yeah.
home still, so there
Yeah.
was no way. So at the time, um, I ended up getting the job at Cheesecake Factory, and I started making really good money, and I loved it. And I fell in love with Ron Bartolomeo and Crazy John Narodsky, and
Yeah.
You know, the money was there. And then like when I went to college, I missed the deadline. I didn't know what I wanted to do after that, the marine
Okay.
biologist. Everyone had their grandeur dream of playing sports. I wanted to play football. I wanted to play baseball, but it never went that way. And
Right.
then I applied, believe it or not, and I'm so glad I never went down this road, but to go into childcare because I loved kids when I was younger. Now I see what childcare is like. No way.
No way.
When I used to pick my kid up from daycare, I used to look at these people and I'm like, I don't know how to fucking do this. I'd kill myself in
Yeah.
30 seconds. But
Seriously.
so because I was at Cheesecake and
Yeah.
Cheesecake was up and coming, I took restaurant and hotel hospitality facility administration 101
Yeah.
at Nassau Community College. And but like I at the time it was fun, man. I can't complain. Me, my best friend from elementary school, we were both working there as servers and bakers, and
Yeah.
I met Brian McCleary and all these great people working in Long Island. I went to Nassau Community College, so I'd get out of school and drive up the street to go to work, and I fell in love with it. But then, again, that's when the parents kicked in, right? So
Of
I had
course.
to make something of myself. So without, being that unguided child and having grandeur thoughts of doing anything, I stuck with the restaurant industry, and then it just was my life. And then, I mean, meeting, significant others and traveling and doing all that stuff, it just kept, like I said, remember, you think about it, we haven't talked in like what, 15, 20 years.
15
It just,
years. Yep.
time just goes and goes and
Time
goes.
travel.
Now, if you asked me if I would do it all over again, hell fucking no. I would probably I tell everybody if I had to do it all over again,
Yeah.
I'd get into a trade. I'd be an electrician or a carpenter or something like that. I've always enjoyed doing things with my hands and figuring things out,
Yeah.
but like, but I wouldn't trade. Trade it for nothing. I learned a lot. I met a lot of people. I met a lot of good people. I will always say this: the best thing that came out of this industry is my wife and kids, right?
Yeah.
Because they're my everything.
Yeah.
But I will say this with the most proudest thing. I can't tell you how many people's lives that I touched, that I was part of, and I'm proud to say I'm part of, helped them get where they wanted to get somewhere in their lives or their careers. Whether it was just sitting in the office and talking them off a ledge because their girlfriend, boyfriend broke up with them, or they had a drinking or drug problem, but just to people that just grew up, and I watched them grow into GMs and managers, people's lives that didn't believe in the way I looked at things, and they changed and they've been successful. I'll never give that up. I'll always be proud of that. That'll probably be my highlight of being in the industry. I've gotten store of the year, I've won awards, MVPs, and all that bullshit and P&L statements, but that will always be, to me, is the
Yeah.
one reason why I've always loved being in the hospitality industry, is just being part of all that stuff, watching.
Changing
I mean, look
lives.
at you. I mean, shit, we hired you,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
you bought into the company, but it was also people like me and Jimmy Cordero and the psychos that you worked with that made it worth
Yeah.
it, right?
Of
We didn't
course.
come into work and say, "Oh, this place fucking sucks. You're crazy. You want to join us?" Because
Yeah.
at that point, it wasn't like that. You know what I mean? So yeah, no,
Sure.
definitely, definitely. But I wouldn't change it for the world. You know what I mean? Life has
Ups
its
and
reasons.
downs. Where you're at now, you've reached the pinnacle, right? From that boy in Queens as a busser to
Yeah,
server to where you're at right now, right?
yeah.
5, 10 years from now, ADO, I mean, doesn't get any better than that. I mean, 5, 10 years
Well,
from now, where do you see yourself right now, 5, 10 years from now?
so 5, 10 years from now, I'm gonna be 52.
Okay.
So
It's
I would
unbelievable, right?
say,
It's crazy.
dude, it's nuts. My wife was making fun of me the other day. She goes, "Why do you keep saying you're gonna be 48 this year?" I'm like, I don't know, because I'm gonna be 48 this year. But
You start counting backwards, man, start counting backwards.
yeah,
It's
I
okay.
tell
It's all right.
everybody I didn't feel it till I hit 36. 36 years old is when I started feeling it. I would definitely turn around and say, so after I left First Watch and I got this gig back at Dave and Buster's, the
Yeah.
new store operations manager, in the interview process, they turned around and told me there's not a lot of growth in this position. And I said, you know what? It's fine. I'm like, I'm happy to be back home, right? So I'll take it. I was like, and there was two people ahead of me. There's my boss and then his boss. So I was like,
Yeah.
one of you guys die or move on, and then I do a
Yeah.
good job, maybe I get promoted. If not, I'm happy to be home. So when this fell in my lap and I was able to go down this road, what I always wanted to be as a regional director,
Right.
it's what I always wanted with the company. I always strive for it. But for me, I've always been that type of person where it's like I'm not going to look for anything else until I perfect what I do, and I capitalize on it. So for me, if I do a good job, who knows? Could it be senior director of operations? Could it be a vice president one day? If it
Yeah.
happens that way, I'll ever be so grateful. But at the same time, too, like for me, I've always thought about it too. Like if it comes down to the point where the daily day-to-day operations isn't for me, and you could be a liaison for somebody else and help people out and grow, I'm fine with that too. But for me, I'm just gonna do um, whatever keeps me making enough money to support my kids into their education and I can retire. I got to do it. If I got to work till I'm 70, I'll work till I'm 70 as long as I could do it, right? But,
Yeah.
at the same time, too, my wife right now in her job, she went to school to be a marketing major and she's not even in marketing anymore. And the company she's with, she's absolutely slaying it. And I'm so proud of her. So I say this all the time and I'm going to say it and it's going to be on the podcast. And you're going to yell at me, Lauren, but she's the breadwinner now, man. She's killing it. And I'm proud of her. Like she's absolutely blown away her and her company and it's funny because like being the person that I've been for my career, right? I
Right.
sit at first in the last position, I would sit in the kitchen and do my work on my laptop, and her
Right.
office is like 2 rooms over, and I hear her handling all the conversations and all the things she does, and then like I'll come in and I'll be like, oh, it's pretty impressive the way you handle that. And then she comes
Yeah.
to me and she'd be like, you know what this person did, and how should I do this? And it means a lot when she comes to me asking me, because I've dealt with it before, which is great. But yeah, who knows? If there was anything else I always thought about, when I had my downfalls at First Watch,
Yeah.
I thought about going back to school. I thought about maybe if it was anything educational, therapy would be something, a therapist.
Okay.
If not, I thought about going to school just to get a trade, mechanic or like electrician or something just under my belt and
Yeah.
do it on the side. And if something popped off, it popped off. The only other thing I ever thought about, and I asked you too, is like
Yeah.
I've loved cars my whole life. I've always loved detailing cars my whole life. My
Right.
brother, knock on wood, he's gotten really, 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 really good at it because he has the time in the world to do it.
That's awesome.
And I told him, I'm like, listen, I was like, you want to come move here and do a mobile place or look into a place, I wouldn't mind getting involved in that because he's
Right.
good at it. And then I have the management side of it all. So that would be something I wouldn't mind tackling down the road. You know what I mean?
Right.
Detailing, whatever it leads into, wraps and tints and
Yeah.
whatever
Get
else
into all that
bullshit
crazy
people
stuff.
do. If it does, it does. But that's always
That's
been an
awesome.
interesting thing for me too. And then,
Yeah.
I mean, I won't get me wrong too. I still love collecting toys, so Whatnot's been an addicting friggin' thing for me. But if I had all the money in the world and the time to sit there and navigate eBay and go to all these stores and buy, trade, and sell toys all day, that
Yeah.
would be a lot of fun
That'll be
too.
a
But
lot of fun
I don't
too.
know what
Sure.
the revenue annually would be for that. So
Sure. That's awesome, man. He's Eric Basaki, former manager of the Cheesecake Factory, former GM at First Watch, recently promoted to ADO, ACOM at Dave and Buster's. Life at the Cheesecake Factory. Everybody wants to talk about the Cheesecake Factory, right? We talked about First Watch, right? And now we're in Cheesecake Factory, the bread and the heart and soul of our meeting and how this crazy world you started. Andy Moy wanted me to ask you how in the hell you started at CCF your first day. Naratsky, he's a crazy SOB. What location did you first work at? Was it Long Island? Was it Westbury you
it was
worked at?
Westbury. Yeah, it was
Who
Westbury.
hired you there your first day? What was that like? The culture, all whites, everything, right? What was that like back in the day?
So my best friend Tommy and I went for a job there.
Yeah.
We walked in, and at the time, we were working in a private restaurant in Queens, New York, a German
Wow.
restaurant. And
Okay.
we were full time bus boys, but at the same time, too, we were catering waiters. So we had waitering and busing experience. So we went and we applied for servers at Cheesecake Factory.
Yeah.
So we went in, we had our interviews, and we were both told. I don't think it was John Narotsky that didn't give us the job. It was Doug Moon,
Oh, Doug
and
Moon. Yeah.
who
Yeah.
who who by
I
the
know
way,
Moon.
yeah,
He's
who
like a
by the
big
way,
dude at the
yeah,
Grand Lux.
Grand
Yeah.
Lux,
The
yeah,
Grand Lux.
who
Yeah. Yeah.
actually turned around and told someone that I knew to say hi to me the other day. Him and I can't remember his name. It wasn't Scott Montero. It was somebody else that left the company, but this was back in the '90s. They
Yeah.
both turned around. And they said the same thing. So if you want to come in as a busser, we're more than happy to hire you. But as far as servers, you didn't have enough experience. So I didn't want to be a busser. I worked so hard. I didn't want to go backwards. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I felt
Yeah.
like at that point in my career, I wanted to make money. I wanted to grow. So we went home. we went back to my house in Queens. We were just hanging out in my house, and my mother came home from work. So my mother goes, "How'd the job go? Interview go?" I was like, "Oh, we didn't get it." She goes, "What do you mean you didn't get it?" And I was like, "We didn't get it." I was like, we sat down, we did our interview, and she's like, "Well, what did you fucking say?" I was like, "I didn't say anything wrong. I answered the questions the best way we could, you know." And they just said that we didn't have enough high volume server experience and that we would be bussers. And she's, "Why didn't you be bussers?" Like, why would I want to go be a busser there when I can bus right down the street where we live and still make the same amount of money, right? And not have to worry about driving out there all the time. So a day later, come back from school, community college, um, and my mother comes home. I think it was school was off or something like that. The banks were closed. It was a holiday, but back then you had school on Columbus Day and Martin Luther King in college, right? So
Yeah.
we came home, and my mother comes around. She says, "I want to talk to you," and she pulls me in the kitchen. And I says, "What?" She goes, "I went back to Cheesecake Factory today." And it's like, "What do you mean? Why did you go?" And she goes, "I went and gave," and this is again, like I told you, she goes, I went and gave them a fucking piece of my mind. And I said, you know what? You didn't hire my son and you didn't hire his best friend. You're going to fucking regret it. They're one of the hardest to working fucking kids you'll ever meet. You should be ashamed of yourself not to give a chance." And I'm like, oh my God, here we go. So I said, "So did you have," so it's like, "Okay." And then she goes, "You have another interview tomorrow." I was like, "I am not fucking going back there tomorrow for an interview." She's like, "Over my fucking dead body, you're not going." She goes, "You and Tommy are going." So I go downstairs in the basement we used to hang out. And I go to Tommy, I'm like, "My crazy mother went to Cheesecake Factory and we have interviews tomorrow." And he's like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" I was like, "Look, you don't have to come with me, but if you don't go, you know she's gonna beat the shit out of you too."
Yeah.
So we went, and this is when I first met John Narotsky, and he turns around and he goes, You're the one." He goes, "Which one of you's mother came here and yelled at me yesterday?" And I was like, "That was me." And he goes, "So you're the son and you're the best friend." And I was like, "Yep."
Yeah.
So again, he said, "I'm not promising you anything." Yeah, he made me sit down, and I had my interview with John, and Tommy had his interview with Doug. Um, and they offered Tommy after the interview process, you know, John turned around and he goes, "You know what?" He goes, "You don't have a lot of serve experience, but you had all the right answers." He goes, "And the fact that your mommy came here and bitched me out, I'm going to give you a shot." So I was excited, right?
Yeah.
But then as I finished up my interview, Tommy was still doing his interview and he comes out and I was like, "Did you get it?" And he's like, "No, they offered me a baker position."
Okay.
And I was like, so I turned around and I said, "I'm not going to take it if he doesn't take it," because I felt bad. Again, that's just who I am. And Tommy's like, "No, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just do it. Let's just get the hell out of the other place."
Yeah.
Now, my whole career, anytime I hit a milestone, anniversary, even at what's the thing they call when you go to corporate? Is it PADC?
Yeah. PADC. Yeah. Back. Yeah. 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 You
So
first
even
met
when
him
I
at
went to
PADC. Yeah.
PADC,
Yeah.
when they do the bio for the managers, the AGMs,
Yeah.
John Nurowski got up and told everyone in corporate, every
Man.
other AGM that was there, that his mommy came there and got him the job. I heard that shit my entire career,
Wow.
even to the point when we opened up West Nyack and
Yeah.
David Overton came in that night, and I had to go apologize to David Overton because who was the bar vice president at the time? Was it Green? Was his last name Green?
Sure. I can't remember. I started in '03, but you were there
He was the
before I
same
did.
one.
You. Yeah. I can't remember. I can't remember. I can't remember that
I
name.
tall guy, black and white salt and pepper hair. I
Yeah.
want to say his last name was something Green. Whatever the case the point may be,
Yeah.
I go to David Overton ordered to the brownie Sunday, and we didn't have brownies. We were out, and I was the one that had to go tell David Overton at the
Man.
table, and he just looked at me and he goes, "He's a human being. Just go tell it to him. He's not going to chew your head off." And I was like, "It's easy
Yeah.
for you to say." So I
Yeah.
went over and I said it to him. I remember, and then this is when we opened up Nyack, and I was a manager,
Right.
and David Overton goes, "Are you the manager that the mom came and complained?" And I was like, "Holy shit, it will never go away."
The
So
first encounter, meeting David
that
Overton, the
that
founder of the
and then that
Cheesecake
night,
Factory.
and then my mom came for VIP that night. She met him and the whole nine
Oh, she did a
yards, and
mock
they,
the mock trial. Oh, she was there.
hmm
Okay.
yeah, for the
Wow.
trial, and
Yeah.
um, that's
Yeah.
exactly what Andy Moy is talking about. That's the
Wow.
story about
Shout
how
out
my
to Andy
mom,
Moy, by the way. Yeah,
yep,
shout out to
that
him.
Mr. McRib.
Mr.
He would, if he could miss work for McRibs, he would.
That's awesome, dude.
But yeah,
What, I
that
mean,
was
what
the
a way
whole
to
that's
meet
the
their
whole way
good
that went
origin.
down. Yep.
Yeah,
It's the
what a
whole way it went
story.
down. And I heard that my whole career from everybody.
He's
Everybody.
like, make sure you get that in the podcast. Make sure you
Mhm.
ask him how exactly you got hired at the Cheesecake
That's exact.
Factory.
Yeah, and I was in '97. I was the second server class that went into Westbury. The first one they
Wow.
opened in New York. Yep.
Westbury, looking back, that was the big time, right? Westbury, $20 million store, right?
Oh
Upstairs
yeah,
and
because it was the
downstairs.
only store.
Busy,
That was the
elevator. That was the
first.
only store. Yeah.
It was the only store. And then I think was the second one Nyack or no? I think it was
Maybe
Hackensack came second.
Hackensack. Yeah, Hackensack was right.
Hackensack
Yeah,
with the New
Hackensack was
Jersey
there.
Mall.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
Hackensack. Then it was West Nyack. Then it was White Plains, and then it
Right.
was the
Rich
second
Hill
store in
opened up.
Jersey.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Jersey.
Which I think
Man.
was Willowbrook. Yeah,
Willowbrook
think.
opened up. Yeah,
Mhm.
Willowbrook opened up. Yeah.
Yep.
What a time. I
Dude,
mean,
it
I
was
met
crazy.
you. It was nuts.
Best of all.
It was nuts.
Not in Long Island. I remember Tuesday nights.
Yeah.
Tuesday nights, we'd get out of class. We would go to the store, change, have lunch, start our store. 4:45 shift meeting in the hallway,
Yeah.
and then 2.5 hour wait on a fucking Tuesday night
It's crazy. Walking out of there, shitload of money.
every night.
Yeah.
Dude,
crazy.
I made so much money
Yeah.
as a server.
And this is back in the day. That was a lot of money back in the day.
I made so much money.
Yeah.
The first a piece of shit car I bought, but I bought a 1997 Dodge Avenger, right?
Did you really?
Yeah, and that
Wow.
car, the sticker on that car was $19,000. I put $16,000 down in cash as a server,
Holy shit, from serving.
just from serving.
Holy crap, man.
And that because back then that was it. Nothing.
Yeah.
To me, the only restaurant that ever touched Cheesecake Factory on any level at that point in my career, younger, was Houston's Steakhouse.
Houston's,
was
yeah,
it.
right next to Hackensack and
Yeah,
Jersey.
or Ruth Chris.
Or Ruth
Nothing
Chris,
else. Nothing else touched it. P.F. Chang's came up in about, but again, it was good food, same level of like the core and intensity and service. But you only went there for Chinese food,
Right.
That's it.
Yeah, that was it.
right? I mean,
Cheesecake,
and
got a little bit of everything.
you had it all.
Yeah.
You had it all. You had it all, and that it was it. It was the place to go. I mean, it was. I remember getting into fights with people who would want to pay me money to have them
To have
cut
a seat.
the wait
Get me a
list.
seat. Yeah, yeah.
The fucking Dudley brothers. Not Devon,
Devon and
the other
Bubba
one.
Ray. Bubba
Yeah,
Ray.
Bubba
Yeah.
Ray came into Westbury one day and he goes, "You know who
Yeah.
I fucking am?" I'm like, "Yeah, you're Bubba Ray." He's like, "Give me a fucking seat right now." And I'm like, "Nah, fuck you." You know, I said, "You didn't have to be a dick about it." He's like, "You know who I am?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know who you are." Maybe you could have been nice about it. Now I'd have
He
given
didn't put
me
you through a
seat.
table. He didn't put you through a table. You got lucky.
It would hurt. Those granite tables would have hurt. But yeah, I
met
mean,
you, I met
that was the
Jimmy.
place to go, man,
That was crazy,
for
man.
years.
Jeez. I met you and I met Jimmy Cordero. I was telling you off air. What a peas in a pod. What a time. Your relationship, crazy. You guys were like HBK and Diesel, Shawn Michaels and Diesel, right?
The
You guys fight
funniest.
on shifts, the uniqueness of you guys. Tell us what we didn't see as staff members.
All right, so here I'll put it out there. Jimmy Cordero and I fucking hated each other when we worked in Westbury, Long Island. Hated each
Really?
other because
So
I was
you were a server. What was he?
So I was a manager and Jimmy was a server when
Okay.
when he first started at
When
Cheesecake
you guys got
Factory.
promoted. Okay.
And
okay.
then the funny thing about it was McCleary loved Jimmy and McCleary
Okay.
loved me. And
Okay.
Jimmy's reputation at Cheesecake Factory at the time was Stifler. Like they used to call
Stifler.
him Stifler because that's how he acted.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
he so I didn't get along with him at first because he was the rebel server. You know,
Yeah,
his
yeah.
uniform was always dirty. He didn't want to listen. He always talked back to you. So him and
Yeah.
I really didn't see eye to eye. And again,
Right.
back in the day, I was young. I was a pushover. So like I didn't have that notch to me yet where it was like, fuck you, go home then if you don't like it.
Yeah.
And then the hard thing about it was, at the time when I came to Nyack, I had my girlfriend Erica.
Yeah, I
So
remember.
Erica, and I found out in between Jimmy becoming a manager and me dating Erica that they had a fling before we started dating.
Oh,
So that made it even a little bit more awkward for me, right?
wow, yeah.
So then when he came up, we sat down in Long Island and we talked about it. And then we had one night it was the third floor of the parking lot, or the fourth floor of the parking lot in Westbury. That's where everybody parked because that was where employee parking was. One night we were walking down, him and I just had a heart to heart, and I had to let bygones be bygones because that was not part of my life what happened. And then we sat down and we talked, and then we just hit it off. And he's just like, I always respected you as a manager. I want to be just as good as you. And I was like, well, you know what? I'm gonna teach you everything I know. I mean, that was probably one of the first hardest people I ever had taught. But then we did it, you know, and then he moved up there and he was living right
In
off of
Rockland?
what he was in Rockland, but he was towards the
Okay.
water. I remember it was
Okay.
towards the water.
The Nyack or not Nyack? Piermont?
Not, you know, it was Nyack. That's
Oh,
exactly
Nyack.
right. It
Okay,
was
Nyack.
Nyack, right?
Okay.
And
Okay.
you know, we hit it off and all that stuff and like that. We got along and you know, he totally embraced, you know, mine and Erica's relationship and he was good to her, took care of her, protected her. So we even became even closer. And then all of a sudden he turns around and he goes, hey, listen, how about, you know, me, you know, me and her. And then at the time he started dating a front desker. And you know, and then we ended up getting the place in Pomona. So we
Right.
just became like, you know, two peas in a pod, man. Like we worked
Yeah.
out together, we hung out together, we played Madden together, and we became like great best friends, you know. And that was the whole how it all went down. But yeah, we were like freaking frack
Yeah.
in that store. You know, we were the
Freaking frack, two peas in the pod. I'm
two
telling you.
powerhouses that
Yeah.
ran that place
You
every
had
night.
your sleeves down all the time. He had his sleeves rolled up, and he's ready for a fight every
Oh
single
yeah.
time. What was
Oh
the
yeah. He
deal with
wouldn't
that?
take
The
no shit.
sleeves thing. What was the deal with that?
I don't know. He just didn't take no shit from nobody. That's how but that
Okay.
was the whole thing. Like that's why people
Yeah.
called him Stifler because he was just like that on that fucking go 24/7. Like if someone said something to you, he was going back to like the same question you asked me too. Like I never
Yeah.
got to that point where it was like I kind of would not say talk my way out of a fight, but I never got it to the point where escalate. I was able to de-escalate before it was. Jimmy didn't
Right.
de-escalate. If there was an issue, Jimmy just stood right. Jimmy literally was that type of guy that would come to you just right here to your nose and just be
Knock
like,
you the knock
and
you the F
but the
out. Yeah.
craziest thing that I don't know how Jimmy did it. And he
Yeah.
did it in every conversation, whether it was serious or funny with me, anyone, especially with Cleary, right?
Yeah.
But even if it was someone he was going to knock the shit out of, that kid would stare you pupil to pupil and not
Yeah.
break a wink
He
ever.
had those
He
eyes
would just look
bald,
at you and he would
shaved,
do
like
this and he would
yeah.
just do this little nod and yeah,
Yeah.
I hear you.
You knew what
Yep,
time it
I got
was.
it.
You knew.
And that was
Yeah.
it. Right. And it used to be like, and I used to say to myself, is he just like fucking yesing me to death? And then but no, he literally was listening. Like when I remember when McCleary would say something, he'd be like, "Yep, you're right. Yep, I'm stupid. I fucked it up. Won't happen again." But what? It was on.
Yeah.
But
That was
then I
it.
remember like if somebody fucking started with someone and stuff like that, he was just the first person. And he listen, motherfucker was strong as an ox. I would
Yeah.
try. And I used to be able to hold my own weight, and I've
Yeah.
always been a husky kid. I tried wrestling that motherfucker. I couldn't get
He was a
maybe
grizzly
once,
bear. He was a grizzly
maybe
bear.
once. Yeah, he
Yeah.
was a beast. He was a fucking animal. He was a
Did you guys
grizzly
ever
bear.
fight on shifts? Maybe you didn't see
Yeah.
that. You guys ever fought on
I
shifts?
don't think we would have disagreements,
Okay.
you know. I think, but never to the point where it was like I probably fought with Andy Moy and Art Carl more than I did with anybody else
Yeah.
on the shifts. You know what I
Art was
mean?
a crazy
Because
son of a bitch too. Art was
oh
badass.
yeah, well, Art came to
Baltimore.
Cheesecake Factory for a
Yeah,
while.
I know.
You
Yeah, I
know,
know. I
I mean,
know. Yeah.
sorry, Dave and Buster's, and
Oh, okay. He
but
did. Okay.
yeah, he was the
I love
executive.
Art, man. Art was
He was
badass,
the
dude. He
VP
was.
of kitchen ops right before I left, and then he was with
Wow.
us, and he left. I think a year before I came back, he left, and he was complete night and day, night and day.
Wow.
I was
Wow.
shocked because like he was night and day, and then
He would beat your ass, Art Carl, man. He
yeah,
was no
he was a
nonsense.
hard ass.
He was
And
a
then
hard
but
ass.
if that was always the biggest issue, that was the one thing that was always tough for Cheesecake Factory. You know,
Yeah.
the kitchen managers didn't like the front of house managers.
It was
Never
always a
did.
thing. Always a
You know,
thing.
always.
Yeah. Last time you guys spoke, you and Jimmy, how tight are you guys to this day? How cool are you guys? Who makes the first phone call? Is it a mutual thing, personal thing, business thing, or is all love?
So I probably haven't talked or texted him in probably about a year or two now. I think it's
Okay.
probably safe. And just because I'm thinking how time flies. We would kind of reach out to each other every once in a while and just check in
Okay.
on each other, say hi and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Or I'd see a picture on Facebook or whatever. I think last we talked was when where was I? We were talking about something. I don't know if it's when I was leaving
Right.
Cheesecake, I'm sorry, Dave and Buster's, or I was leaving First Watch. But he was
Okay.
telling me that he was looking at opening up gyms, or he
Okay.
was going to invest in some gyms, and he wanted me to help him run it. But we really never really connected after that.
Okay.
We did talk a lot when he first moved to San Francisco, when he knew it was time to get out of New York,
Yeah.
and then it just over time between my job demand and his job demand, and he was driven to be, you know, a cop, and then he became a detective, and then the whole thing got married. But we last hung out, I want to say it was about 15, 16 years ago. He came to
Wow.
Nyack and I saw him, I want to say.
Wow.
Because I've been with my wife, we'll be married 10 years this year, but we've been
Okay.
dating almost 12, 14 years. And
Wow.
and then right before I started dating Lauren is when I last saw him in Nyack.
Right. Wow. What a time, man. I swear, did you guys ever throw anybody out like the restaurant back in the day? Any guests you threw out, took them out to the back, smokers garden, whipped their ass, came right
No,
back in the shifts?
if he worked at Dave and Buster's in Times Square, then we probably would have, but not. I don't think we've had to. I've asked to ask people to leave
Okay.
Cheesecake Factory before, but I've never got to. I don't think we ever got to a point where it had to be physical.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
you've always had that person that mouths off and stuff like that, and then you kind of tell them you're going to call the cops, and they're making a
Yeah.
scene in front of everybody. But that was back then. I mean, now things
Yeah.
have
Different
changed.
different
Everyone,
times, man.
different times now. Yeah,
Yeah.
people have no problem saying they got a gun or they're going to hurt somebody and shit like
Right.
that. But no, but I mean, if it was ever, I mean, I've been to bars with Jimmy after work and stuff like that, and I've seen people bump into his girl or say something to her the wrong way, and it's just, oh shit, here we go. It's going to
Just
be
like,
on.
geez,
Not that he
geez.
was going to need my fucking help, but
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what a time, man. I swear you guys were like HBK and Diesel. I mean, it's just unbelievable, man. How you guys ran that place. Just unbelievable.
yeah, it was fun. We were McCleary minions.
Paulie D, John Munson, Jim Hartner. Shout out to Jim Hartner, good friend of mine.
Jim
Brian
Hartner,
McCleary,
holy shit.
Maribel, Brandy. What a group. Thoughts on them. Favorite GM you ever worked for at CCF? And why was that person so special to you to this day?
That's going to be tough because I think I had
Okay.
a relationship with everybody, right?
Okay.
So Jim Hartner, I don't think Jim Hartner was ever my GM.
Okay.
I think I left Nyack when he took over and I was in Hackensack. And
Okay.
then I went to Wayne. Because if I remember correctly, so my first GM that I worked for was Doug
Yeah.
Moon.
Doug Moon. Yeah.
So, but Doug Moon was for a short stint.
Okay.
Then after Doug, it was Narotsky. Narotsky was a love-hate relationship because
Yeah.
he was a
He's psycho.
psychopath.
Psycho. Yeah. He's psycho.
I mean, the guy was like the
Yeah.
nicest person too one day, and the next day he was the evil counterpart. Dr. Jekyll,
Completely.
Mr. Hyde.
Yeah, for sure.
The guy that got me into management was Narotsky, but the guy that believed in me, and he passed away a few years after he left, was Ron Bartolomeo. So you wouldn't know who he was, but he
Right.
was awesome. I swear to God, he was like Tony Soprano's fucking brother. The guy was bald head, 6'2", belly,
Right.
talked just like Tony Soprano. He was one of my favorite. He was a great great fucking guy.
Yeah.
Maribel it's just a completely different whirlwind. Like that
Yeah.
story of Maribel, I loved Maribel. Working for Maribel, she taught me a lot. John Munson, same thing, man. I mean, I'll
Yeah.
never forget sitting in Westbury's office. John Munson pulled me to the corner and he said, "Listen," he goes, "I don't know how to do any of this shit. I don't know how to do any of this paperwork shit. Close the office, deposits, nothing, no, no." And
Yeah.
I said, and I taught him how to do everything. And everything I taught him, he always kept me under his wing. He always looked out for me. John Munson was like a big brother to us all, for sure. Maribel was just crazy because when Maribel came to Nyack, right? It was rough because it was me, her, and it was that I think Chinese guy, Asian guy that was from Detroit.
Andre Shoe Bomber Shoe, one of my best friends.
Right?
Yeah, Shoe Bomber.
And
yeah.
we were all at each other's necks for senior. We all
Right.
wanted to be senior, and it caused and it's a good life. It was good. I learned a lot from that, right? So like he left and he went back to Detroit. Then it was between me and Maribel, and then Maribel came in, and I felt like just John Munson loved Maribel because she was the hot, Puerto Rican woman that everyone loved, right? And then she got promoted to senior, and oh no, it wasn't senior. We were both senior. She got promoted to AGM, I think it was. Yeah, it was AGM, and I was fucking pissed. I was pissed, and I remember Mike Moore, who God bless that motherfucker. I love that guy. He pulled me outside in the hallway, and we sat right outside the windows and the benches right there on the lower level. And he turned around and he said to me, "The reason why I'm not promoting you to AGM is exactly why we're sitting here, is because I was so upset about it. I was immature and I was bitching to everybody about how she got promoted." I tell people that story all the time when it comes to coaching and developing people. Like I let the immaturity of it get the better of me. And if I didn't, it would have been me, or my time would have been right around the corner. But because of that, I had to work harder. But then after that, Maribel and I, we built a relationship where we were
Yeah.
probably one of the best good cop, bad cop management duo in West Nyack for a very long time. Because I remember when she would get fucking pissed off, she would go to a
Yeah.
table and she'd be like, fuck, 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 fuck. And then she's like,
Yeah.
can you go talk to that table? I think I really pissed them off. And then we would do that all the time. And then, and then I followed her all the way to Wayne. And,
Yeah.
but if you, in my career or just
Yeah.
Cheesecake Factory in general?
Just the Cheesecake Factory in general. Yeah.
That's such a rough, tough conversation. It's because McCleary told me a lot. McCleary
Yeah.
always looked out for me too.
Right.
Shit. I'm gonna have to say it was McCleary. It was
McCleary.
gonna have to be McCleary. I mean,
Yeah.
he always, and again too, like it was a different level, right?
Yeah.
It was Munson and I were like best friends. Maribel and I were like best friends. Brian and I
Right.
were friends, but we still had that work balance, right?
Work
So
balance,
like, he knew how to turn it on and turn it off, right? So
Sure.
and I say this to everybody that knows him today, right? Like Maribel, great GM, but I was able to navigate with her, right? I was able to navigate with Munson.
Sure.
I was able to navigate with Narotsky, right? Brian was the king of the mind fuck.
Yeah.
That no matter what came up, right? Sales, labor, selling bears and gift cards. Brian has this trick, this psychological way to take your ass out of the clouds, off the floor, or whatever, and get you to see his vision and get you to do it. And I've never met anyone else that can do that.
Wow.
Like, and I'm not saying that just because he's my COO right now, right? And he
Right.
gave me back, but I'm just saying he has this way. It's like if you walk into a store today, right? And I turned
Right.
around and if I took my all the GMs that work for me right now and I had a conference call and I said, listen to me, you degenerates, right?
Yeah.
Someone's calling HR. Someone's going to call HR. Someone's going to turn around and say, this guy's a fucking asshole. He curses a lot, whatever.
Right.
To this day, I'm on my first ROD meeting on Monday just to see how it all goes down. And the first thing out of his mouth is all these RODs and GMs still can get on him, but listen to me, degenerates.
Yeah.
But no one hears it. They just know he's being true and down. Like,
himself,
and he just has this leadership way about him
right.
to get you to come out of, like, if your girlfriend broke up with you and she was cheating on you, or you lost a significant other, or you were drunk the night before, or whatever, or you were just like high on a kite kicking ass. He just knew how to pull you out of whatever streamline that you were on and bring you
Right.
back to the focus of reality and what the goal was and what needed to be done. And
Right.
I've seen him do that with anyone that's, and I know he has his enemies from Cheesecake Factory, right? So I could tell you from the people that he came up with in Cheesecake that I know, and then the people from Dave and Buster's to now. Like when I came back, right, and I was in the NSO position, the new store operations manager, and I got to work with this girl Cass, and she's awesome. And then when I turned around and I told us, I've known Brian McCleary since I'm 17 years old, and their eyes light up, right?
Yeah.
And the next thing out of everyone's mouth is, he's amazing. I love him. He just has this way. Like he'll sit down with you on a store visit, and it might have nothing to do with your store, but you didn't see it coming. But no matter what that conversation was, you won't forget that conversation.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think you. I was gonna say something else, but I think you had that ability also too, Eric, because your alignments were epic. I mean, I remember it was like Jake the Snake Roberts, very psychological, very methodical. The way how you got us to believe certain things you wanted us to believe. I'm like standing up there, like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I remember you used to shake
your
your head.
alignments. You made us feel like a piece of shit. Don't call me. Don't text me. You guys take advantage of me. This is bullshit. Don't do this ever again. And I left that alignment like, this fucking guy, he's really good. Where did that come from? I remember your alignments to this day. It was so deep, so thorough. Like, damn, like, he's good. Did that come from McCleary? Because you made us feel really bad. And it didn't have to do with me, but like everybody else felt really bad because you were the go-to guy, right? We took advantage of you at times because they call you, they text you, they want this, they want that. And you chewed us out a couple of times. And I'm like, damn.
I think part of it definitely came from Brian to a degree where it was like I started to learn how to balance towards what I did for people, right?
Yeah,
And how I can
yeah,
get it
yeah.
back out of people, right? But
Right.
that wasn't always necessarily the reason why we did it, but it was just
Yeah.
like coming up from server to manager, right?
Yeah.
You see everyone, you see how they work, you see how they operate, right? But
Yeah.
then the one thing that I've learned, and I think it's part of the reason why I've been successful today, is I've learned how to keep the door open to let people in. And it's not a trick to let people in so I could take advantage of them, get out of them, but you learn how to get an opportunity to have people see what you see and then reflect because of respect, right?
Yeah.
So for example, like I remember exactly what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And like nowadays too, people probably give you like that message where it's like, that's not an effective way to coach and teach people, right?
In
Because
alignments, I want to do the same thing. I give them exactly. I said, "Hey, listen, guys, no walkouts, no this, no that." What happens? We got to walk out 2 hours later in the shift. I'm like, I
right,
told you guys the test. The answers to
but
the test,
you
and you
just
guys dropped the ball again.
yeah, because but you find a way to like, you find a way to fine tune and line up people. And the generation from you guys back to till now is a completely different. It's
Oh,
a whole
night
new
and day,
ball game. But
night and day.
eventually, you just you it starts to come from inside instead of always here, right?
Yeah,
But then you realize it eventually does connect tactically in the both departments, and that's the way
yeah,
I used to say it all the time. Like, how many times have you should have been sent home? How many times do I let you guys come in late, or whatever case the point may be? Now that might hit two people, that might hit three people. It's going to hit the people that have more of a moral clause as opposed to the people that don't give a shit. But then that's
yeah,
when you also turned around and said, all right, well, that's why I started doing that. And they're like, okay, so if you're late for shift meeting and you're not in uniform, your shift is automatically going to the sharker, or your
yeah,
shift's going to the person that's there for the shift that's ready to go. So then you got them to realize what was going on and pay attention to it from two different
mm,
angles. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
that's kind of how you
yeah,
have to do it, because that's the hardest thing with this day and age is you know, you could be the best employee that we have, but if your girlfriend broke up with you the night before, you come in, you're not hearing anything I have to say.
no, no,
You're right. So there might be something I do say in that pre-shift,
yeah,
and that might click to you, or maybe not. Then that's when it becomes the one-on-one pulling sides. Like, hey, listen, I know you weren't focused. What's going on? Like, talk to
yeah,
me. All right. But like, I always tried to find a way to get to, and that's probably what I learned the most about McCleary, but was also part me, is I've always found a way to be like, you know, just watching people's body language and just listening to
yeah,
people and knowing that they're different that one
yeah,
minute or that one moment in the day, and be like, or you overhear things from people and be like, hey, you good? Yeah, well, a little birdie told me that so and so and this happened. Is that what's on your mind? You don't have to talk
yeah,
about it, but if it is, I'm here for you. If you don't want to be here, whatever, you just start to learn how to process that in, because in the United States now, you have to work to survive. So that's where people spend. If they're not home, they're at work, right?
correct.
But I think a lot of it channeled from Brian, but at the same time too, I probably didn't notice it then, but now thinking about it now, yeah, because that was the thing, like I remember if I had those shift meetings then and they were effective, he wouldn't say anything, right? But then if I
Yeah,
had a shift meeting like that now, like even in the interview process when I did this thing too, he said, Eric, your words now as a rod carry with more meaning than they ever did. So you just can't turn around and say, oh, whatever. Because if you say
right.
whatever, then no one's going to respect it
Then
and no
those
one's
gonna
going to listen
respect
to
it.
it. So the
Right.
proper words are, I don't have an answer for you right now. So we're going to stick to what it's supposed to be. And I'll get back to you when I find the right answer.
Yeah,
You know, but back in the day, when I was just a manager that was in the battlefield with you guys every day, I would turn around and say, whatever, no big deal. We'll just comp it and we'll deal with it later.
yeah,
But now as you grow, you learn that also hurts you in the long run too. So with him, I think, yeah, part of it channeled in for sure. But it also too, it was just like for me, because like I I was also blessed in a lot of situations too. Like when we were in Nyack, we had a great management team. We had a great staff. That staff always was, I tell people, next to the staff that I originally hired when I first opened up Manchester for Dave and Buster's,
right.
Connecticut, that was probably the best staff that we ever hired in my career, right?
It's crazy.
Everyone was hand selected, right?
Yeah,
There was no one that was really a piece of shit or it was sideways, you know what I mean? It went from demographically, the looks and attitude and presentation just fit what you wanted in the industry. You know what I mean? And that was the same thing. And I remember Brian saying that, that stuck in my head. And I did that when I was in Manchester. And it's a big deal, because then you really get to know people and what makes them tick and what. So when you go up there and you turn around and say, bullshit. You guys are late every day, and you know what? The ones that like I remember what's his name. That's right, I remember his name. He drove the blue Acura Integra,
Eric
and he
Canetta,
had
my boy. Eric
yes,
Canetta, him and McHenry.
yes. And I remember he was fucking late all the time, and his apron
Yeah.
always looked like shit. But you know what? He never listened because he always his biggest focus was how good of a server he was and how everyone loved him, right? But then, so if I turned around and I said stuff like that what you said morally stuck with you, and you thought like, you know what, you're right. Eric is good to us all the time. It's right. People take advantage of him. I'm not going to be that guy. So that resonated with you because nothing else was a problem for you. But with him, when I would turn around and say, oh, well, you're 30 seconds late, Susan just took your shift, and he'd be like, are you fucking serious? I'm like, do I look like I'm joking? But then after 2-3 times after that, you didn't have that problem. So you reeled them in. But it was also very systematic to do that then. You can't do that now anymore. You can't have shift meetings. You can't send people home because of protected classes or it's insane. It's insane.
Crazy. It's crazy. Did you know what you're gonna say? Because sometimes I'm driving in, I just think about the day, think about the culture, think about everything.
Yeah.
You knew what you wanted to say because those it just came naturally to you. Because that sticks with me to this day. It's crazy. 15 years later.
Well, once you get homed into what you want to do and you know what your goals are, you kind of have an idea where you want to go with it all. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like same thing even like today when it comes to Dave and Buster's, right? We might not be selling cheesecake, right, to guests, but we want to sell the eat and play combo. Or we want to sell the conversion rates, right? So it's just like, you talk about it, be like, you go to shift meeting, be like, we're going to talk about conversions. Tell me how you sell conversions. Why can't you conversions? Like you could sell desserts, but you can't sell the powder. Oh, I feel like I'm taking advantage of the people. So you go into it and stuff like that, knowing what you want to say. And again, I think it just comes down to, it's like, but you make a point out of it too, right? Like, like I remember you would be great at certain things. Like, Kenford's always at the host stand showing everyone at the tables.
Yeah.
And that's why Kenford's always sat. So you can complain about me all the time about his station, but he's the first one to help me at the host stand without me asking, right? So eventually people caught on to it and you saw it. So if you wanted to talk about keeping butts in seats and helping at the host stand, you found that it eventually resonates with you. Like, he's the person that I'm going to go to. He's the person that always runs food. So when he turns around and asks me for a request, or that's why he got a better station this week, because he does everything I ask him to. If you're outside smoking cigarettes all the time and you know who you are and you can make fun of them and point at them and stuff like that, you're not showing it today. You're not running desserts. So you're not going to have a better station. And I remember it just took a lot just melting it down. But
repetition,
it also too, and then once you know you have ears that listen to you, it's always easier to come up with something and talk about it too. But as long as you have a foundation into what you want to say, it always worked.
Sure. Your upbringing at CCF, the culture, hard work, everything will take care of itself. How'd you get promoted? You finally got the GM, the AGM spot. How did that work?
I got promoted because what happened was I was always told I was too young. And I got to the point
immature, right? Like, you bust your ass, you did everything.
Mature.
I'm a busser. You paid your dues, right?
And when I was at Cheesecake Factory, I remember John Narowski him and I had an argument outside on the parking lot, right? And I was like, I want to be a manager, John. And he's like, you're too young, you're too mature, you need more time in the seat. And I was like, I do everything everyone asks me to do. I expo more than everybody else. I pick up all the shifts you need me to do it. But I just wasn't like the fan. To me, I wasn't a fan favorite. Did I probably have a lot of stuff to learn? Absolutely, right? And then I remember it was a Sunday, and I was going home, and I was clocking out, and he comes and grabs me. He's like, where are you going? I said, I'm going home. And he's like, no, I didn't talk to you. He's like, you're coming with me next week to Indianapolis. I'm like, I am? And he's like, yeah, they need an expo there, and you're our best expo. So we went to Indianapolis, and I remember after a few days expoing there, the GM comes up to me, and she's like, Eric, she's like, I heard you want to be a manager for the company. I was like, yeah. She's like, well, why aren't you a manager? I was like, well, John says I'm not ready. She goes, well, if you want to move here, I'll make you a manager tomorrow.
There you go. Yeah.
Right. So when he found that out, he's like, well, you don't steal my fucking guy. Don't take my fucking guy. And then I went back and I got promoted,
Yeah.
And then when I got to senior manager, it was a battle between me and two other guys. We all came up with the same. We all wanted the same thing. And I was the last one to go, but I no harm, no foul. I didn't give a shit.
Right.
And then when Nyack was opening up, Brian McCleary pulled me in elevator. I remember going down the elevator in Westbury to the cafe, and he's like, "You coming with me to West Nyack?" I was like, "I don't want to go to West Nyack. I just want to go to White Plains. This way, I don't have to take the bridge. I don't have to pay the toll." You
The
know? He's
Tampan
like,
Bridge back in
"Yeah,
the day. Yeah,
yep."
yeah.
He's like, "Bullshit. You coming with me?"
Mhm.
But I knew I had stuff to work on, and then the whole thing happened with Maribel. Then Brian McCleary left, and then it was Paul DeWall
Paulie
was
D,
the
yeah.
GM,
Paulie
Paulie
D,
D,
Paulie D, yeah.
and he rode me like a fucking mule. That guy beat me down every day. But then after work, he would take me out for sushi right by the house because he lived in the same complex in Pomona,
Yeah.
and he was completely. But he spun it in a different light. You know, we'd go out to dinner and we joke, and he'd be like, "You see why I did that?" And everything that he said really clicked very well. And then I remember it was a menu rollout, and he told me I was going to lead the menu rollout, and I sat at
Yeah.
the table with shit. See if I
The
can remember
APOs,
now.
the GMs, I mean, your peers, menu
It was
rollout.
the yeah.
That was
It was
crazy,
every.
right?
It was
Back in the
yep.
day.
Those
You
were
had to know your
intense.
shit, right? Back in the day, right? You
You
had
had
to
to
know your
know your
stuff.
shit.
Yeah.
And I remember it was the time when it was Mike Ricci and Larry Dolgoff and
Yeah. Yeah.
me and with that tall guy that went back down to Florida,
Mike Monahan.
Bryce,
Monahan.
Bryce
Bryce.
Quinn.
Yeah, Bryce. Bryce Quinn. Yeah. Shout out to
You
Bryce.
know,
Yeah.
it was, and then I remember sitting at the table the whole day. I knew every recipe, every step, every procedure,
How did you
and I rem-
prepare for that? Did you study? Was it a grind? How did you prepare
it
for
was
that? The
it was
mindset.
I basically what I did was is I come in and cook it, and then I
Okay.
would go home and I would just sit there and study it, and then I would give it to someone I was living with or whatever, and I'd be like, all right, so Chinese chicken salad, 10 ounces of this and then 10 ounces of that or whatever, and list it all off. And if I got it wrong, I made myself go back to the top and go all the way through it again until I got it right. And
Yeah.
then until I can cite them all by hand, I wasn't ready. And then I would cook every day and cook with the managers every day because I knew how big of a deal it was to the store. And then at that time, those were really big milestones that carried your promotions.
Right.
So,
Right.
and I
Right.
remember that class, and then I remember sitting at the table, and like I remember Mike Ricci was nervous, and Larry was nervous, and they'd sit down, and I'd be like, and then when they would get stuck, I would say something. I was like, "It's the same amount in the other dish of what you just said. Don't forget, everything's almost the same." So my coaching through it all, they were so happy with the performance. That's when I got promoted to AGM, and then I went from there to that's when Kaplan took over, and
Eric
then
Kaplan. Yeah.
Kaplan sent me to Hackensack to help Munson because
Yeah.
they took I forget his name, the AGM they sent to help Maribel in Wayne, and then that guy turned out to be a piece of shit. And then it was the same story for me all the time. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
when I was up there in Nyack and Maribel was in and then Munson was in Hackensack. They fired someone, and then it was like, "Who do you want?" And like, "I want Wysocki." So then I got sent there, and then the
Right.
same thing happened with Maribel. Maribel was like, "I need Eric," and then I went there. So again, like you rewind back to the conversation with Mike Moore about me being stupid and complaining about not getting the thing, and she did, and like, "Oh, she's a girl," and everybody loved
Right.
her, and But then at the end, you look past the immaturity of it all. I
Sure.
was able to make an impact on those leaders, and they wanted me to be there with them too. So, you know, and then Maribel got White Plains, and then I got promoted to GM of Wayne. So
It's awesome, dude. The culture back then in Nyack, what was it really like, man? It was kind of crazy, kind of chaotic, sort of like the '80s, right? I mean, there was drugs, there was alcohol, there was weed,
has it
prevalent
changed?
prevalent back then. Probably hasn't changed. Is that a restaurant thing? I mean,
It is. I think it's the industry. I think
we
it
lo-
is.
we lost a lot of
I
people, right?
mean,
Ben
oh,
Crafter,
I
right?
remember.
Derek
hmm
Monahan, Mike Ricci,
hmm
rest his soul, Mike Blue. Which one of those that stood out to you? I mean, like shocked you, like really took you back.
Well, I mean, the first one that hit me was Ben. I mean, that never happened to me.
Yeah,
I'll never forget the call from was I think it was Katie,
Katie, his
right?
girlfriend at the time. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
When she
yeah.
called me up and told me what happened, I didn't know what to say. I
Yeah.
mean, I've never that was the first time for me ever in life and in the industry. Um and it's still, I mean, I think it was probably one of the most awkward positions because at that point in my life I've never really worked. I mean, I've lost family members, right? But I never lost an employee, so it was just it was weird. It was weird, because it was just like you know, everyone saw it differently. Everyone was down. I think the one that hit hard was Blue.
Mike Blue.
Yeah, because I remember just there was more of a relationship. He was aspiring to be a manager and he came to us for everything. And he came from that dirty, sloppy server that you had to yell at every day because his uniform was gray. And he
Yeah.
came a long, long way. And then
Right.
from out of nowhere, it was just like, because for him, the people that he knew and I knew, we all had that interdimensional relationship where we all grew up trying to get to where we wanted to, and then that just came out of nowhere, nowhere. So that hit hard because it was just like it was a loss. It was a loss for the company. It was a loss for everything that we did because it was just there was more time in it. Ricci, I that it broke my heart because he to me I remember just he was kind of like family at first
Yeah.
when we first were up there,
Yeah.
him and Larry, like I remember just they were always there. They were
Yeah.
always there,
Larry, one of
and
your good
then
buddies, man. When the last time you guys spoke? You and Larry D. Shout out to Larry D, by the way.
I talked to him right before he moved to Florida when he went to BJ's. I saw him in BJ's in Nyack, right?
Okay.
And then every once in a while we would text each other through Facebook, and I haven't really seen any posts from him lately, and I think that's kind of how it just diminishes off if you don't
Yeah.
see a post from someone in a while.
Right.
But I mean, I think last we talked, he had a girlfriend or a fiance, and he was very happy, and I know that meant a lot to him. But yeah, I mean, it was just like I remember when I left, and Mike was by himself. It was just downfall, and then he left, and then he was a manager at the pool hall, right?
Right.
Rockland,
Pool Hall. Yeah.
and
Diamond
then
Gyms. Yeah. Diamond
Diamond
Gyms. Yeah.
Gyms, yeah. And then
Yeah.
last time I saw him, every time I saw him after he left, he just looked worse and worse and worse. But I had no idea what it was. I thought it was
Right.
just life,
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
life grabs you the wrong way.
Right.
Yeah, that was a left field. I know it hit hard. It hit Larry really, 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 really bad.
Yeah. Best
So
friends.
that
Yeah.
was it was yeah. And then again, it's not it always just when it's an unexpected one like that, and regardless of the manner of how you know people closer or
Yeah.
not, it's just it takes you by like surprise, and
Yeah.
it's just like
Sure.
sometimes the reaction is so hard to like fit, you know what I
Fit.
mean? Like
Yeah.
so
It's
but yeah,
crazy.
no,
We
that
all
was
knew. We
crazy.
kind of know like who did what, knew who did what. You ever walked in on anyone in a bathroom and there as a manager seeing any crazy stuff? No names thrown out there.
I've never ever in my career okay, I take that back. A GM and a KM I did see doing blow on the bar in Westbury at
Wow,
once. That was funny. In the
man.
middle of a Saturday night shift, dude, it was hilarious.
Oh my god.
Um, but I've never, ever walked in or caught a staff member ever
Yeah,
doing anything, weed,
crazy.
drugs, or any of that. And Dave and Buster's is a completely different world. I've caught
Yeah.
guests banging and staff members fooling around and all types of crazy, smoking pot in the back doors and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
crazy.
Especially in Times Square. Especially in
Man,
Times Square.
well, shout out to Mike Vella for that because he wanted some
I used to
stories.
make I used to make fun of Vela because Vela at the time before he became a manager used to be a dealer, and there were times like I remember on a Saturday night he's like, I'm getting out of here, and he gave me a hug on the bridge, and the bridge is like
Yeah,
what we call our office. And
yeah.
I was like, Mike, I was like, look, I don't know where you bought that cologne, but that cologne's very suspect. You might want to invest in another cologne to cover up the sticky icky or the purple haze or whatever you want. And he's like, I appreciate the advice.
Yeah, that's
He took it.
hilarious,
He
man.
didn't smell all the time.
He just fell all the time. That's good.
But I would walk past lockers all the time, and lockers
Yeah,
would just fucking stink and
crazy.
choose to
Top
be a
five,
cop or not.
top five managers you worked with at CCF. Your career. You got a top five at the
Top
top of your head.
five.
Yeah.
Do we have to keep? Do you want to keep? We'll keep McCleary out of it.
Okay. People
Let's
clear
keep
out of it.
McCleary. He
Yeah.
he already won a title.
Yeah.
All right, it's gonna be John Munson.
Okay.
It's gonna be Erin Colfer for
Okay.
sure. She was one of the hardest managers to get to believe in me.
Yeah.
But once then it was awesome. John Lamanicki. will be one for sure.
Okay.
So because we grew up as servers, one of
Right.
Brian's boys, did a
Yeah.
lot of stupid shit together. Not John, sorry, not John Lominick, John Zabniak. John Lominick, he never became a manager. He was the bartender.
Okay.
Let's see.
You got 3 so far.
So many. I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Jimmy. Trying to think. So many people.
Jimmy could be like the 6th man, right? He could be like right there. He could be
Yeah,
your
he
guy.
can.
That was your guy. That was your guy.
Yeah, it's like when you think about the 5 horsemen.
Yeah, exactly.
You're gonna have to throw Jimmy in there
Okay.
for sure.
All right.
So that's 4.
That's 4.
Trying to think because there's some. Oh shit! What's his name? I worked with him in Wayne.
Okay. One of the Wayne guys, Jersey guys. Okay.
Fuck, I can't remember his name. He doesn't work for us anymore.
Okay.
Oh my god, it's like at the tip of my tongue. He works in a pizzeria now in New Jersey.
Okay. It'll come to you.
It'll come back to me. It'll come back to me. But if I can't think of anybody else, there's still a lot of honorable mentions.
So many.
So many.
Man,
So
man.
many.
Let's take a quick
Jeez.
break. We'll come back. We'll do like a part 2. We'll do a part 2 of
Okay.
this to talk about the staff, the culture, why they're so soft this day and age, Dave and Buster's, how you met your wife, your kids, and we'll get you out of here with some quick rapid fire questions. So
Rapid
don't go anywhere,
fire.
stick around. Yeah, I'm Ken Freddy Zarek. We'll be right back. Mic'd Up Moments.